few weeks ago, I attended SRCD, the Conference for the Society for Research in Child Development. One of my favorite things to do at this conference is talk to graduate students and undergraduates, the young researchers who are moving our field forward. That includes developmental psychologists, but it also includes people from human development and family services, from public policy, and many other fields. And so here are my favorites. Research that I think is a really good representation of the work that's done in this field.
Why I'm here at SRCD is we are looking into family interactions in an art museum, so how families are having conversations and how parents are scaffolding their children to ask more questions, make more connections with the different art pieces as well as art in themselves and art in the world in general, and how parents are directing their children's behavior and attention within an art museum.
I study the impact of early adversity on the development of children and young adults who were raised in institutional settings, specifically in baby homes and orphanages.
I study how children learn words, and so I'm interested in what they believe that object label actually means. So whether they believe it's a one-to-one mapping, or if they think this is a generalizable category label and how they acquire that.
I specifically study how families, specifically parents, influence adolescent academic achievement and success.
I study cognitive development during adolescence. So in particular, I study how pubertal processes impact the development of cold cognitive skills and of hot cognitive skills. Cold cognitive skills are considered thinking without emotions involved. So there's sort of like these logical planning and thinking skills, while hot cognitive skills are thinking under conditions of intense emotion or high arousal. And we tend to find that when adolescents are alone or when calm, they can reason or think about as well as adults. However, when they are with friends or when they're sort of these heightened arousal states, they tend to actually perform much worse than adults and even children who are younger than them.
I look at infant siblings of children with autism. So these are families that already have at least one child diagnosed with autism, and these are their infant siblings. Within that project, my particular interests are the parent-child interactions and looking at how these young infants respond to one another, interact with their mothers, and how things such as their eye contact or vocalizations can inform their later developmental outcomes.
I'm interested in how infants and children understand social cognition, so mostly I'm interested in how preschoolers understand imitation and whether there's some social causal reasoning behind imitation.
I'm particularly interested in early childhood. Two things mainly. I look at parenting, but I also look at preschools and pre-K quality. So in terms of parenting, I'm really interested in parenting quality across different family structures. So looking at how parents differ in cohabiting versus married families.
Specifically, I'm interested in higher order self-regulatory thinking processes in preschool students and how we can better understand and facilitate those skills for the most optimal learning that we can possibly facilitate in later lifelong learning.
I study different peer relations, mainly in adolescence, early adolescence. I am particularly interested in the relationships between gender typicality and peer victimization, social withdrawal, things like that.
I study children's eating behaviors and how might some of the parental factors and familial factors that may contribute to their eating behaviors.
So I look at how the curse of knowledge affects social reasoning. The curse of knowledge is the tendency to be biased by one's own knowledge when reasoning about other people's naive perspectives. So it interferes with our ability to make inferences about what other people know. And as you can imagine, if you don't know what other people know, it affects your ability to take on their points of views.
Generally interested in the academic outcomes of Latino adolescents, but more specifically interested in what contextual family and cultural factors impact those academic outcomes, and how is it that we can merge children's own individual characteristics with those other contexts to create a better environment so that they can academically achieve.
So I'm currently studying how children learn from different types of media and their fantasy reality judgments of that information. So how children decide if it's real or pretend, and how they learn from different sources of information.
So my research interests are around the psychological well-being of refugee youth, thinking about pre-migration stressors and how they cope with those, and then how that ultimately affects their mental health.
I study how children think about and learn from technology, especially touchscreen technology and educational apps.
So there are these underlying brain networks that come out when you're just daydreaming, and I'm interested in those brain networks, how different areas of the brain kind of connect and talk to each other, and how that characterizes autism versus ADHD.
I study behavior genetics, personality, and externalizing behavior. Most of my research is focused on sensation-seeking traits and callous unemotional traits, and how they intersect with different peer and parenting processes to predict heightened risk for problem behavior, whether it be delinquency, substance use, or other general health risk.
I study value and identity-based motivation, particularly in regards to social justice concerns.
I study risk and resilience in children and families who are experiencing chronic stress. And I'm especially interested in ways parents can help contribute to healthy social emotional development even while their families are dealing with a lot of adversity like homelessness and exposure to family violence.
A big part of what I care about is educational inequalities. So right now I have a couple of projects that I'm focused on immigration enforcement and how that affects Hispanic students' performance in school.
I study adolescent alcohol and substance use and social relationships, particularly interested in how social relationships in the family are related to adolescent adjustment outcomes.
Is there any of this research that you want to know more about? If so, let us know in the comments below. I'll get in touch with those researchers and try to do a longer interview. Be sure to follow the Psych Show on social media, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube.